my proposal for the budget for next school year. This is a very different presentation. If you've been through this with me before, it includes different information. And this presentation is based around addressing the decline in enrollment. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, which is not something that we really discussed in previous budget presentations. So I'll start with our mission: to graduate all students with the knowledge, skills, and understandings for success in the 21st century. And then as part of our comprehensive plan, we have our 3 overarching goals. The first focused on student learning, the second focused on personnel development, and the third focused on facilities and finance. So I have that summarized in the presentation, but in your packet in the next tab, you do have a copy of our comprehensive plan for reference throughout this process. If you want to look at the goals, the objectives, and the corresponding strategies, you have that information with you as well. So if you turn the page in my presentation, I want to first talk about some assumptions I have coming into this process. I'm thinking about how we're going to address declining enrollment that's projected over the next 10 years. I'll share more about that in a little bit. And I go into this with the understanding that there are no popular solutions to declining enrollment. It will inevitably impact someone in a way that they won't be happy with, and there's a possibility that you're going to hear from them. So I'm trying to do 2 things as I think about our situation. The first is to be considerate of the people who will be impacted. And by that, what I'm thinking about is knowing that this will be difficult in some situations, that we go about this gradually over time as our enrollment declines. The other part of it is to be responsible to the people that we ask to pay for our schools. So there are several options, and I've included some of those in my presentation for things to think about. And I'm sure that there are other options to consider, but I've tried to put together something I think that makes sense in a way that's both considerate of people that will be impacted and responsible for the people that we ask to pay for the schools. So I want to go back to the enrollment trends that I shared back in January, just to remind you that nationally, we're seeing a decline in school enrollment of about 5%. Throughout New England, the enrollment decline is around 9%, and in Maine, it's about 6%. This tends to impact rural communities more than urban and suburban communities, but overall, the trend is for a decline in enrollment. On the next slide, you have the projected enrollment for our district by grade level for the next 10 years. So if you look across the first row, at the high school level, in grades 9 through 12, our current enrollment ranges between 137 and 147 students at each grade level. When you look at grades 5 through 8, those class sizes are in the 120 to 130 range. And when you get to the elementary level, K to 4, they're in the 1 teens to 120 level. So you can already start to see a gradual decline over time. If you look in the kindergarten column, you can see that over the course of the next 10 years, our projected enrollments range between 104 students next year to 119 students. But overall, the expected enrollments for incoming kindergarten classes will be somewhere around 110 to 112 students each year for the next 10 years. So if you look at that a little bit differently in this graph, you have historically over the past 10 years, going back to the 2018-19 school year, our enrollment peaked at just over 1,900 students. In the current year, we have about 1,750 students. And 10 years from now, it's projected to be just over 1,600 students. And you can see in this graph that it's expected to be a gradual decline over the next decade. So here are some priorities I'm thinking about as we go into this budget year. First, we should work to keep all 7 of our schools open. And with that, we should adapt to enrollment changes in our elementary schools first, as those smaller class sizes come into our schools. That will take place over the next 5 to 7 years. And as those students work their way into the middle grade and high school in the following 5 to 10 years, we should focus on the middle and high school. So focusing on the elementary schools, I think we should maintain 1 teacher per grade level at Friendship, Prescott, and Union. And then gradually over time, through attrition, reduce teachers to 2 per grade level in grades K through 6 at Miller and Warren. Julia will talk more about the situation at Miller School, but one of the things I'm proposing is that we move one of our self-contained special education programs from Miller to Warren. I'm sorry, from Miller to Union to help address overcrowding. I'm also proposing that we reduce one of the pre-K classrooms at Warren for next school year, and also that we look at redistricting and as a strategy to address overcrowding at Miller School. Go to the next slide, please. Currently, if you look across our schools, the projected enrollment for next year, you can see that for each of the grade levels, we have the current number of teachers, which is 9 teachers in grades kindergarten through 4, with 6 teachers in pre-K, 7 in 5th grade, and 8 in 6th grade. And that gives us average class sizes that range between 11 and 17 students. 5 years from now, using the enrollment projection, combined with a reduction of teachers leveled out at 7 at each grade level, and I have taken out of there also the 1 pre-K classroom, the average class sizes will range between 14 and 19, with most of them being 16 to 17 students. And again, that trend will continue. This shows the next 5 years, but that trend is expected to continue for the next 10 years. And then on the next slide, I just wanted to show you a summary. The projected enrollment change over the next 5 years is a little bit more than 30 students. And then the proposed changes in staffing, you can see at each grade level. It's mostly 2 positions per grade level. In some cases, 1 for a total of 12 positions. The expected impact of that on the budget would be a savings of approximately $1 million. So as I think about all of the conversations we've had and our circumstances and the data we have available, I realize that there are some other options that I'd like to just mention briefly this evening. I have not proposed these because I think that they each present their own challenges. I guess all of the options present challenges, but these present more challenges than what I'm proposing. So the first would be to add on to Miller School. Let's just make more room for the people who are there. The approximate cost of doing that would be about $2 million for that addition. If we were to have all of our 6th grade students across the district move to the middle school, we would have to add on to the middle school, and the approximate cost of that would be about $5 million for building additions. Another possibility would be to combine grade levels in schools where the enrollment is low. So it might be an example of combining a 4th and a 5th grade classroom, or a kindergarten and 1st grade classroom as a strategy to consolidate. Another option would be to just move grade 6 students from Miller School to the current high school. That wouldn't, to the middle school. That wouldn't require an addition, but it would have an impact on how the middle school is currently configured. Another possibility would be to make the proposed changes at a faster pace. I think if we consider doing this, there will be much more people impacted in a much smaller period of time. it will result in a similar outcome, but be much more disruptive. And then the last option would be to consider closing one of our elementary schools and consolidate them into 4 schools. Like I said before, I'm sure that there are other options, but these are at least some to be thinking about as well. I think there's some additional considerations that are important to be aware of as we go into this process. First, as I'm sure you've heard, there is some uncertainty about the status of federal funding for the state of Maine. At this point, we do not have any clear information about what will happen next. You may receive all of the funding, some of the funding may be reduced, and we may even lose all of the funding. We just don't know at this point. And so as we learn more, as we work our way through this process, we will certainly work to keep you informed. I want to remind you that we expanded our pre-K program with a grant, and that grant supports 3 ed tech positions that are requirements for those 3 pre-K classrooms. That grant expires at the end of this school year, and so we have to make a decision about how to proceed going forward. I also want to remind you that there was a study underway to look at the EPS funding formula, and that there is a report expected in March. So as soon as that information is available, we don't know what, if any, impact that may have on next year's budget, but I think that's some information to watch for. Also, the Governor's Commission on School Construction is expected to issue a report in April, and so that is information that could impact us as well, knowing that we have capital construction applications into the department, which is the next item on the list. And I just want to remind you that we expect to hear from that where we stand on that list in June. Unfortunately, after this budget process will likely be over for next year. And then finally, I just wanted to mention our obligation to provide a free appropriate public education for 3 and 4-year-old students by the 2027-28 school year. So I'm not proposing that we do anything with that for next school year, but either the year after or the year after that, that is also something that we need to plan and prepare for. The last thing I have in my presentation is just my contact information for anyone who would like to follow up with me. I'd be happy to talk with it, try to answer any questions. If someone has any comments or suggestions, I'd be happy to talk with them about this process. So continuing through your notebook, as I mentioned, you have a copy of our comprehensive plan. You also have a summary of enrollments for the past 2 years, the current school year, and projected for next school year for each of the schools, for each of the grade levels. And then if you could turn to the budget summary page, I would like to do 2 things. One, I'd like to review the summary of the proposed changes. And then with that information, I'm going to ask Karen Pike to talk about the cost sharing formula and how this proposal may impact our towns. So starting with the budget summary, you have at the top of the page the total dollar value of the current fiscal year budget, just over $38 million. And from there, we listed line by line proposed changes to the budget, beginning with what I call Tier 1, which includes maintaining our current effort. So the first item on there, debt refinancing, just has to do with savings as we pay down the principal on borrowed money. We actually have a savings of just over $46,000. That's something that occurs every year. For Midco School of Technology, we're expecting a small increase of $15,906. For wages, you can see the figure, it's just over $1 million at $1,147,000. And then for benefits, most of which is health insurance, we estimate that increase to be about $782,000. And I just want to mention now that we do not have the expected increase for health insurance at this time. Karen has budgeted that at a 10% increase. We did learn just today that the total cost of the increase for the trust that funds insurance for all or most or all school districts across the state is expecting an increase closer to 17%. We don't have a final number. It's too soon to tell, but it sounds like 10% may not be enough. And again, we'll keep you posted as we learn more about that information. 17%. We're also expecting an increase in property insurance of just over $40,000. And then Matt Lash has done a great job of going through all of our extracurricular transportation needs, accounting for cost increases from an increase in wages, an increase in the number of trips, and the shortage of drivers that has resulted in having to contract some of these services, result in an increase in transportation costs of approximately $44,000. Under Tier 2, I have some legal requirements. These are things that are new or mostly new to the budget that we need to account for. So first, I want to talk about the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act. That's something you may remember from last year. We did budget for that at the time. We did not at that time have the rule that clarified exactly how we had to prepare for that. So we have adjusted that amount based on what was funded last year to cover a 0.5% contribution for this new year, or the employees were required to provide that for. So that results in a slight decrease of about $34,000. We also have an obligation for accreditation through NEASC. Linda has requested $4,000 to support that. She will have more information to share as part of her budget. Going into Tier 3, these are additional requests. I want to start first with proposed capital improvement. This would be a trade-off, moving funding from that $1 million that was added to our maintenance budget late in the process last year to use some of that money to fund payments to support capital improvement projects. And just as a brief summary, that would include the septic system at the high school, the heating system for the middle school and high school, heating controls here at Union, insulation at Miller, and ventilation and the remaining heating controls district-wide. Brian will have much more information for you when he presents his budget. And again, that expense would be offset. The next group of positions bundled together are all related to our pre-K expansion. We have two of the ed tech positions that are currently in the pre-K grant that I'm proposing to move into the general fund at a cost of just under $122,000. And also from Title I to move one of the pre-K teacher positions into the general fund. Now you'll see highlighted in tan, each of those items are proposed moves from Title I. We do not yet have a Title I allocation. We're trying to be proactive, anticipating that there will be a decrease in Title I, but we don't know that at this time. Also related to pre-K, we have a second teacher position at Warren. That position's also in title, and with the reduction, we would not have that expense, but that would not impact the general fund because it's in titles. And then along with that, we have the pre-K position also at Warren. That position is currently grant funded and would not have an impact on the general fund. I have in here the addition of a teacher at Miller to address class sizes there. That would be contingent on being able to move a program from Miller to Union. Julie, again, will talk more about that shortly. Also, the need to add 2 van drivers. We have increasing transportation needs across the district. Brian will be able to talk more about that, but I'm requesting that we add 2 van drivers. And then, as you know, we launched a literacy initiative this year, and with that effort, we'd like to continue support. And so we're asking for some funding for training for both SAVIS and M-Class at a cost of about $14,000, and then literacy resources to replace consumable materials for Spire at a cost of about $20,000. I have in here surveillance cameras. This would be for a lease purchase over the next 4 years. The first year payment would be $50,000. This is part of our effort to make sure we have secure facilities. It would upgrade our system. It would include broader coverage, and it would also move us away from the current system we have in some of our schools, which has been banned. We have in here the proposal of moving a kindergarten teacher out of title funds into the general fund. And with that, the reduction of a teaching position at Warren due to a retirement, that would be a reduction of about $105,000. For the athletic trainer position, as you remember, Matt has worked over the past several years to try to work out a partnership or a plan, a way to employ someone to work as our athletic trainer. We have really struggled to do that. And so we're proposing this year that we create a position and hire our own athletic trainer at a cost of about $86,000. That would be offset by the money that's currently funded, $50,000 that we've used for contracted services. We are proposing to move a multilingual teacher from half-time to full-time. This would result in the reduction of a half-time intervention teacher that is currently funded in title. The net result of that would be an impact on the general fund of $60,000. We also have 2 positions that are supporting McKinney-Vento that are in title funds that we'd like to move into the general fund. That includes a driver that helps transport students from surrounding communities, as well as a coordinator who works with students to make sure that they are getting the support that they need. We have a part of an art teacher position at Friendship that we'd like to move out of title at a cost of about $6,000. And then we'd also like to move the license for EduPlanet, which supports our curriculum planning and staff development resources related to that at an approximate cost of $18,000. Next, we have the Swank Motion Pictures licensing for district-wide that would give us a license to be able to use clips from copyrighted material. Holly will have more information to share with you about that. We also have a request for a social media manager software package at a cost of just over $3,000. Again, Holly will be able to talk about that. And then a proposal to upgrade our website at an approximate cost of $10,000. And then from last year, I thought it was important then, and I still think it's important now, a proposal to add a substance abuse prevention coordinator that would have an impact on the budget of about $90,000. We talked previously about school resource officers, so I've included those in the budget. That would be 6 positions at a cost of $440,000. And then a library and media specialist position. We think we could do a better job supporting our students and staff if we had two library and media specialists at an approximate cost of $90,000. And then we've also included in here, again, a carryover from last year, video production equipment for board meetings, knowing that we're moving, not board meetings so much, but committee meetings, to be able to have appropriate equipment for that. We estimate the cost to be about $50,000. And then the last thing I have on the list is the Director of Human Resources position that I've spoken about previously at an approximate cost of about $120,000. So that gives you a 1-page summary of the different things that we think are important to consider as we go into this budget process. We thought it would be helpful to share with you not only the items and the expected costs, but also some different scenarios for how this could impact our towns. And so I'm going to ask Karen now to talk about revenues and cost sharing, which is in the next tab in your notebook.
So before I change over to the next screen, I just wanted to show you down the side. You'll see scenario 1, 2, and way down at the bottom, 3. So those are the three scenarios that I'm going to speak about. The first one gets us all the way through, the capital improvement, which is, net zero, so it's at the 5% increase point. And then the next scenario is including the pre-K staff that sits in grants. And then the last scenario is everything in. I just wanted to point those out to you before I switched over.
Right, for sure.
See if I'm more successful presenting this than I was the other one.
Karen, are you saying scenario 2 includes everything previous?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to work my way from the top, try to make it a little bit bigger, and I'll try to talk a little bit louder. At the very top is revenue, and it shows last year's budget versus this year's budget. So the first several lines are revenue, like I said. Tuition, regular education, I'm recommending we keep it the same. It's coming in around the same so far. I mean, we only have 6 months of the school year in. These are children who tuition in from surrounding districts that don't have high schools. Tuition for special education is students who tuition in from other high schools that don't have a high school. I'm sorry, other districts that don't have a high school. And I'm recommending we increase that because we have a few more students this year that we do believe will stay on for a few more years. The next one I wanted to speak about is state subsidy. We've actually are receiving $833,921 more this year than we received last year. So that's a substantial increase in our revenue. State agency clients, we have a few foster families that are permanently, foster children that are permanently in our district or have been for quite some time. So we're seeing an increase there. Main care reimbursement. Last year I budgeted at $4,000, and this year we're bringing in about $40,000 a month. So I anticipate that revenue to go up $396,000. And then we're continuing to try to decrease the fund balance that we put in back, I think 2020, I want to say. So this would leave us with 400. We've been working it down 200,000 a year for the last couple of years to get that to zero. So this is scenario 1. So based on that, this would be the general fund. You'll see the impact to the town of Waldoboro would be 5.34%. The increase to the town of Washington would be 1.92%. The increase to Union would be 3.39%. To Warren would be 2.17%, and to Friendship would be 3.18%. Then we add in the adult education, which is going up ever so slightly at $2,367. Food service, as you may recall, last year I requested that we reduce that. We used to get $125,000 from local tax base, and we reduced that to $55,000 because of the federal and state funding that we've been receiving, which I will speak about during food service as well. But we're going to request to keep that flat still. So once we add in food service and adult education, you'll see that the numbers change ever so slightly. So that's scenario 1. And again, that brings us down through capital improvement. So it basically covers wages and insurance increase or benefit increases and additional transportation for athletics and a few other minor things. So then scenario 2 brings us down through adding the pre-K staff in that are currently either in the expiring grant or the Title I, Title V grants. And at this one, Waldoboro would go up to 6.3. Washington would be at 2.85. Union would be at 4.33. Warren would be at 3.10. And Friendship would be at 4.12. goes up again ever so slightly by that $2,300 for adult education. The last one is scenario 3. I should have mentioned, I don't change the revenue in any of these scenarios. I mean, obviously that's up to the board to ultimately make a change there, but those are my recommendations. So with putting everything in, Waldeboro would be at 12.11, Washington would be at 8.47, Union would be at 10.03, Warren would be at 8.74, and Friendship would be at 9.81. And I hope to have for the board by next week, the impact that would be on $100,000 on the tax base. I don't have all that information yet. So I'll present that next week. I don't know if anyone has any initial questions for me. Randy?
Lost my way in here. Sorry, it goes back to all the way to Steve. The grants, pre-K grants,
Yes.
federal or state
Oh, I believe those are state level grants.
that we're losing the state level grants.
We're not losing it. We knew it was expired.
No,
Yeah.
I'm, okay, they're state grants.
It expires at the end of this year.
State grants, okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Steve or Karen?
One thing I did want to mention, when Steve was going down through the summary, the previous page, the ones that are in tan, light tan, you know, I go through this every year. I pick colors I don't know. Are all the titles Randy remembers. I can never get them right. It's all the title monies. The dark tan, maybe, is the two, I coupled the two capital, so you can see it's a net, and then the gray is just showing the net of Matt's proposal. So that's why those things have different colors in them. Naomi?
Not being a finance wizard, I'm just curious to know what the advantage or reason is for moving things out of titles and into the general fund.
We're anticipating a reduction in the federal allocation for
Okay.
title funds.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about that, or should
Well, yeah, and Tom will talk about that more, I think, when we get to that section of the budget.
Okay.
How many resource officers do we have now?
One
And we're proposing 6.
for each school.
It'd be 7 in total, so it'd be M plus 6.
And 2 media specialists,
We currently have one,
which is required by the state.
correct,
So we'll go over with 2.
not required. Correct, we're required to have one. Well, that by rule, we're required to have one.
Right, to oversee all of them.
Correct.
So we're looking for another one to help oversee all the others.
Yes, my thinking is one for the middle school, high school campus, and one for our elementary schools. And again, Tom will talk more about that when we get to his section.
You ready to go ahead and move on, and we can always come back. You're here many nights for questions. I'd like to invite Julia Levenseller from Miller School.
Can I speak briefly?
Oh, yeah.
Julie?
Hold
Sorry.
on, sorry.
Julia, come on up and
You
get
can
ready.
come up and.
Yeah, I just want to kind of walk people through that are new to the board and perhaps new to the audience. And I'm going to use Julia's as an example. So each of the school budgets look exactly the same, and then all the other budgets look very similar. So all the schools will have 4 different concepts: a cover sheet, a salary or staffing sheet, summary pages or multiple pages, depending on how big the cost center is, and then a detailed. Within that, you'll see, on the summary, you'll see yellow lines and white lines that we'll refer to. The yellow lines all fall under the central office, are really outside the control of the cost center. Except for the fact that, I mean, they could ask for more staffing, which would change that number, but basically it's contractual obligations such as, salary increases, insurance increases. Is somebody dying? Okay. And then the white lines are what the building administrator or the director, is spending or requesting to spend. In addition to that, you'll see on the cover sheet and on the staffing page, the blue are people that reside or work in their buildings but are not in their cost centers. And the green, it's a very light green, is, color challenged, is new things that they're requesting, be it a change in staff, or a new concept that's not previously in their budget. And the red are vacancies in the district. So I just wanted, so that people don't start asking Julia why her yellow lines are going
I
all
was
over.
gonna talk about it.
You were going, okay, then you're good. Thank you, Julia.
I'm Julie Levenfeld. I'm the principal at Miller School. And our assistant principal, Dave White. Somebody asked her a question as I go along, okay, just so she feels useful. All right, we'll start on the cover page. I'm supposed to be prepared. At the top, the class sizes are based on the current staffing. You can see that fifth grade, we have 25 students in it. We have that now. It's a challenge. And that's why I asked for another teacher, why we requested another teacher to have 3 on each grade. As you know, we have no space for another teacher. So that is contingent, obviously, on having some room, maybe in another decision I hope you'll make. So just put that out there. The intervention is reduced from 3.5 to 3. That's the half-time math interventionist. That person is going to become the full-time MLL teacher. So that's why that's different. Again, we need space. Thank you to those of you who came over to see what it looks like at Miller. If you haven't been, please come over anytime. Just let me know when you'd like to be there. We'll show you around. We do not have no room. There's no room to put anything new in. People in closets, in hallways. So it's not just about getting like one new space. Moving on to special ed program, though I would hate to do that, would give us 1 classroom. We really need more than that because we need the music room to come up off the stage. Those of you who saw what that looked like, who have children in that program. And our health and world language teacher have no room either. So just things to keep in mind. In the proposed staffing page, so page 2. That little hand line for teachers, that's the new 5th grade teacher. The ed tech, is that a hand line too? Whatever.
See, now you're messing with me on purpose. That is,
Whatever you want.
that is just moving the,
That's just moving the pre-K, ed techs from the grant into the budget. They're not new, they're already working for us. And on the next page, page 3, you see the tan lines, the pre-K teacher, is not there, the map, that's titles. They won't be in, titles funds, the pre-K teacher or the math interventionist. Okay, hearing no questions or?
Hold on, math interventionist is gonna be no longer, or is it gonna be in the budget?
It will be no longer.
It'll be no longer.
Because you don't need it, or you're trying to be
Well,
fiscally
we
responsible?
need it, but we are being fiscally responsible. I try always to be fiscally responsible. We'll talk about that a little bit. All right, if you go to the proposed budget summary. I wish I'd printed this with much bigger type, so I apologize, it'd be hard for me to see.
Yellow lines, that's Karen, things I do not control. The white lines I have control over. So the first white line, employee training and development, you can see is up 275%. That's big, right? I'm gonna explain what it is, don't worry.
I need to be developed.
But you see the other white lines either held steady or were decreased. The dues and fees line is our, hang on a sec, I'm giving you the right. That is, our Roots reusable membership, and we're not gonna renew that. So that cost center, that part of the budget only went up 2%. But if we go to the next page, whatever, the page 5. And you see the total school-based costs are actually down 2%. Even though there was an increase, because we're making all of the white lines in the admin, school administration section, are down except dues and fees, that's a contractual obligation. Any questions there? Turn the page and I will explain in the details. So the first section there is regular instruction, employee training and development. That was the section that went up more than 75%. That is training for math instruction. This year, several teachers are piloting a math program, iReady. We don't know if we're going to expand it or not, but we got a quote. And in order, they will provide training for $6,900 for the entire staff on using this program. So we felt it was best to put it in. If we don't go forward with it, if we don't need it, we won't spend it, but that it's in the budget. I took out other things in this section so that it didn't, well, it went up, but that the whole thing didn't go up as much. The whole thing, that's not very helpful, is that? The regular instruction line is actually down 3.2%, even with that increase of almost $7,000. In the instructional supplies line, you'll see math materials for $11,000. If more teachers want to use iReady, we have it in the budget to purchase those materials. That's what I have to say there. And the white lines are down 2%. Any questions? Anything else you want to hear about? Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know if it's really directed towards you or towards Steve, but with the presentation of the proposals for the whole district, where's the savings potentially of approximately $1 million? Is that related to this budget? Is that showing in here anywhere?
My assumption is that would be gradually over time, over the next 5 to 7 years, is if the positions were not filled,
Okay,
the savings would be about $1 million.
just because she's, talking about space and stuff, and that part of that would
Right.
be helping that. So I don't know if that's
Right, there's
part
a
of the
lot of
budget.
options there. Some of them don't help us next year. It would be more long-term, and some of them could be hopefully more immediate for next year.
And the program that you would move to the union school, the special ed program, what room is that taking up now? And then I'm just trying to think of the Miller School space and what room you would,
So it's room 30. It's from the hallway,
Mhm.
from the office, straight down the hallway. There's lead on one side, composites on the other side.
Yeah.
So potentially the composite room.
and do you know where it would go at union?
Exactly. I don't know. Because that's not my decision. Yes.
It's just something that I heard that you can clear up. Somebody told me that your pre-K building, that you have the pre-K classroom in there, was built for 2 pre-K classrooms, but only one is using it. And I don't understand why that would happen if you don't have the space.
I can talk about that.
Okay.
So when that was made, there is a certain square footage that has to be in a pre-K classroom, in the chapter 124. And it can include a variety of things. And when those things were put in, I think it was talked about that that wouldn't give us the space that's needed, for 2 classrooms down there. And it sure does not. It doesn't qualify as a space for 2 pre-K classrooms down there.
So it was the intention, but that's not,
It was
not,
all
the
great
space is not
intention,
truly there.
But the building would have had to then added on once the 2 bathrooms were in place.
Yeah.
And there's you can't count hall space, and you need to make sure it's accessible.
Mhm.
Moving forward, we have some brilliant ideas for that space when other things are going to need to be taken on potentially by the district. But that would be assuming we have space to utilize.
That's a teaser for a future budget.
That was, I'm excited. Jane's got big ideas. Nobody puts me in charge of money for that.
Hey, Brandy, yeah?
On page 6, handwriting without tears.
Sorry.
I didn't, handwriting without tears. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Is this the only school in the district that's doing, I didn't notice it in the other elementary schools.
I don't believe we're the only ones doing handwriting now.
So
I know other
$6,000
schools-
to teach.
It's a workbook
Okay.
and for them to practice.
I was just wondering, because I only see it here and.
It may be just that I, itemize. differently than other schools,
Putting
that's
the
all.
chalk lines across the board.
Well, we don't have
Sure.
chalkboards.
Ah, you know.
We have chalkboards.
This is the R. I just want, it just seemed like regular classroom
Yep.
education.
We've been buying these materials, as some of you know, for years. It's not something new.
And it does teach cursive.
And it does.
To start, I got to do the tour like you were talking about, and I got to see those math and the new literacy programs in action. Those are awesome programs. I was seeing kids doing stuff that I did not know how to do at their age, and that was really cool. Something I did want to ask, and the conversation kind of got started at the last couple facilities and finance meetings, was kind of a redistricting or moving some kids around. And I know I've had a few conversations with Brian about it. I didn't know if he had reached out to you and you guys had been able to work out some stuff. And again, kind of the question will come up again when Terry's up here for friendship. But what are your thoughts on possibly moving around some kids or redistricting to get some kids out of your school and downstate to friendship, a school we're kind of underutilizing it?
Yeah. I know Terry talked about it. She would love to have more kids down there. Not that I would love to get rid of any kids. I want to make that really clear. Make that really clear on the public meeting.
Yeah, I don't want it
I'm
to
not
come
trying to get
across
rid
as
of
kitty,
anybody. But I think it would help both schools. That's I think it can help both schools. Thanks for
Anyone else?
listening.
Thank you.
Again, please come by and visit us.
Crystal?
Good evening, everyone. I don't have as many changes as Julia. On the first couple of pages, the cover page and the staffing page, the second one, I'm happy to say that we are fully staffed. And that was with the additional hire in January of our world language teacher. With all of those specialist positions filled, all the students are able to have special once a week, including the pre-K students, and then also opportunities for students in grades 4 to 6 to have band and forest and then some GT art. Moving over to pages 3 and 4. All of, again, my white lines, you'll notice are exactly the same as they were last year. I had a goal of making sure I want to increase any of the lines, and I was able to do that and feel that we're adequately able to support student achievement with the budget we have now, and we'll do the same again next year with this proposed budget that I have here. Are you a halftime principal and then chief ranger? Yes. Okay. I kind of thought that, but I just didn't know that was included.
Questions?
Just a comment, a boring budget is a deadline.
There's no such thing.
Sorry, Karen. Numbers are
From
never.
her point of view.
A little long sleep right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Terry. Sunrise.
I wanted just to thank you, first of all. This year's budget, we were able to buy equipment to begin a new approach to math. We were able to start a level book library. So I wanted to start with just thank you that we were able to get some new things for our school and our students. Our budget too, we're not asking for increases. We have some changes that I'll go through, but we're really not asking for any more money. We'll look at and see that our white lines are also reduced. So on page 2, you'll see that our teacher is 3. That's because in our budget only it's budgeted for a third-time position. As of 2 years ago, it was moved to a half-time position, similarly in Union and Washington. For that to happen, Title V funds picked up from 2 of our position. So knowing that those funds are going to be reduced, we'd like to put that in the general budget. So that's why that is green. And I just need to make a plug. When you looked at scenario 1, 2, and 3, our art teaching position is down as tier 3 and not part of scenario 2, but it's only $6,000. I hope that we can keep it at halftime. So that's the only change on the proposed staffing page. We have, our membership funds. If you look, you'll see that our membership line is reduced completely. That's reusable. We too are not going to renew it. Our teachers did not use it enough at all to make it worthwhile. We also have spelling bee, national spelling bee fees in there, which we did not do this year. So we're not requesting that another year. The money, by reducing that, we added to our field trip funds. Our kids go to a lot of places and we want that to continue, and field trip costs are going up. So we're not asking for more money, but we're adding money to field trips. I think those are the only changes on that page. On the next page, you'll see, oh, there is a change, but it's yellow. Our new music teacher really uses piano, so we had to add in piano tuning annually, which is a whole $200. On our admin lines,
Just, sorry to interrupt, the line she's talking about is non-technology repair and maintenance.
sorry.
So generally I control that line because it's photocopiers and the likes. But for schools that have musical instruments, scientific things like microscopes, et cetera, that also goes into there. So I add what I have on top of theirs and then I put it in.
So that's why there's an increase to on our admin line, the only increase is starting this year, unexpectedly, we had to start paying for mailbox rental. We don't have our mail delivered to us. We have to go to the post office to pick it up. And the fee for that, I believe, is $188, or it was last year. So the only increase is to pay for our post office box. In answer to the comment about handwriting without tears, we did not order those books this year. We are ordering them next year. We wanted to wait and see how much handwriting was in Savvis. It is the program that our teachers have always used, and we see handwriting is just not covered enough in our literacy program. So it comes out of our instruction supplies under our ELA and math material. So it's not itemized, but it is something that we too purchase for our teachers. And that's pretty much it.
Kind of continuing what I brought up during, the Miller presentation. How much room do you think you have in your school for more students?
I would love to see many of our classrooms, doubled. We have 8 students in kindergarten right now, going to first 8 students. We have a class that's way too small in 4th grade that has 4 students. We added 2 3rd grade students to kind of lessen some of that for the 3rd grade teachers. So it has 6 students. It's really hard to have great classroom discussions with 6 kids, especially on a given day, you might have 2 or 3 of them out. So the only class, our 5th grade class going to 6th grade has 10 students. So it can certainly take another 6 or 7 students. So yes, we have room. And our staff is fully aware that that discussion about redistricting is taking place. And I've also mentioned it in newsletters to parents that that discussion is taking place at this level.
To fill everybody else in, the finance committee, it was brought up, and then it was brought up again in one of our last facilities meetings. And so the conversation was started between Brian, myself, Karen, and then a bunch of other administrators about the possibility of either redistricting or moving some kids around between specifically Friendship and Miller to kind of open up some more space in Miller, get kids out of hallways and reduce some classroom sizes that are really causing some issues there. I don't know if it's, without risk of overstepping, is it okay to ask Brian if he could kind of summarize some of that conversation?
I think we could probably,
Either now or when he presents
Yeah.
his.
I only asked for now.
I don't know that
simply
he's
because
prepared
it's-
to do that this evening, but I know that he has.
Well, that's
that.
why I was saying without the risk of overstepping, if he's able to.
He's still awake, so.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. So I approach this from a standpoint of making it as cost neutral as possible. And for transportation, that really comes down to 2 groups of students. One is our special ed students that primarily go by van or small bus. Cost is very neutral between having those students go to Miller or taking them down to Friendship or to any other school in the district. Second option would be to take one of the buses that currently service Miller, take that entire population from that one bus, and that bus goes to Friendship rather than going to Miller. And we happen to run that on one of our buses. For next year, it lines up very nicely with the needs of Friendship. It doesn't necessarily make it doesn't subtract a lot from Julia, but it does subtract, particularly in the 4th grade, that I think was the one that you've got a really robust grade. So there are some options there. But obviously that takes some steps, but yeah. It would also take a look at this, as I recall, that might have been a little bit more apple than Terry wants, because I think we were looking at about 50 students on that particular bus, that would be going down that way.
So right now we have 63 students, only 63. 50 students would bring it to 113. That's about what it used to be several years ago. So I think that's so fun.
Yeah, I think I looked back, Terry, and you actually have over 120, I mean, predates you and I, but I do remember looking back, being surprised at the number of children that used to be at Friendship.
I do want to say, not that I'm putting in a plug for an addition or anything, but we do have space problems, not space in our classrooms, but where a gym is shared by art, is a hassle, it's a scheduling issue. Art, music, PE, and lunch. So we have to configure all of that, and we have to use our gym and the classroom space. And on some days, it's bouncing between music and art. So we too have difficulties with space, not that you would expect, but we do. And world language has to be in the classroom, music has to be in the classroom for 1st grade, and health is in the classroom. So we don't have separate spaces we have a place for a desk, and that's it for our special teachers. So they at least have a place to put their belongings and hang up a jacket. But we don't have separate classrooms for those things.
I've got Leah, Nicole, Rachel, then Emily.
My understanding from talking to Julia and visiting the school is that the real issue are entire classrooms. And so it would be nice to reduce class size and for you to be able to increase class size, but redistricting does not solve that problem of just opening up entire rooms for move additional classes. So there's something to consider.
In the discussion of redistricting, previously when we had talked about it, I think at finance, did we also? Well, we talked about it at finance before, the redistricting. Did we also talk about Warren also? Because that kind of falls in that line of Friendship Waldeboro as well. And there might have been space there. Yes,
Yeah, I
or we're
think-
only talking about these two schools, Miller and Friendship.
No, I think it's a general discussion about the idea of redistricting, and as a piece of that, there's addressing overcrowding at Miller by having some students attend Friendship. If you know, I proposed moving a class from Miller to Union, but I also think we could look at North Waldeboro, who may be closer to students who may be closer to Prescott
Yeah.
as a possible option, and maybe even students that are, you know, in between Miller and Warren.
So it's redistricting as a whole.
Potentially, I don't, you know, it's disruptive for sure to
Yeah.
do something like that. And I don't think we want to, I think we want to be careful about how we approach that. But I'm confident we could reach class sizes of about 16 students across all of our schools, but it would take some reconfiguring of which school students are attending. You know, over time, as the enrollment declines, it will impact fewer people because there will be fewer students enrolled. So, you know, the sooner we do it, the bigger the disruption, the longer we can wait, the fewer students that will be impacted by that. I go back and forth. I'm not sure where the right place is.
Like where to start.
To land on that.
Rachel?
I was just wondering if you've had any, this is for Julia too, because you guys seem to be kind of the most impacted down there. Have you had any feedback from parents from them, like, sort of outcries strongly in one direction or outcries strongly in the other direction?
No, but I hear it's on Facebook.
And on that Waldeboro site, someone posted about a rumor going around that everybody on Finntown Road is going to be sent to Friendship next year. There were only positive comments from our parents that were posted about our school. So you can all look at that page. But that's the only thing I know.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Really calls up, you know.
Nobody's called up yelling at me.
And too, our town is just a really tight-knit community. I'm not hearing, when we discuss that this might have to happen because the school is so small, I'm not hearing pushback from our parents either.
Because I feel like your school would probably be like, if that's the alternative to either closing or like, let's welcome these kiddos.
Right.
Let's welcome everybody longer.
And the staff is feeling
Similar.
yeah. But you're right, it's different for us. You know, I can understand it from parents' point of view, if you've gone to Miller for 4 years and all of a sudden your child's being sent to a different school where that would be concerning.
Lots of variables.
Emmy?
And so that's precisely my question. Would this change be phased in? Like, so the kindergartners, not a big deal. They've never been in any other school. A fourth grader, you're kind of yanking them out of their classroom and their friends and putting them in somewhere new. So would it be phased in, or do we just take one group of kids 1 year and they go to a new school?
I think Brian is suggesting one group of kids 1 year to not have expenses, increase expenses in transportation, but ultimately it's your decision, the board's decision.
Yeah.
I do know the classroom that Julia needs, a new teacher to reduce that size because 25 is so large. That's our grade level that we get 4 students in. So, I mean, I think that is something to keep in mind too, the cost of a new teacher versus, moving a class to our school.
Naomi?
Couple things. Firstly, I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and you do survive moving to a school. But I also was thinking in terms of the space and the art and music and all sharing with them. When Warren, before the Warren Community School was built, we had the Ecky Rose School with Warren Primary, the brick building, brick school. The official name was the Warren Primary School. And we had a the art teacher had a part, a big part. She just moved from room to room, which would free up a little space, I suppose.
We tried it with art and that's really hard with paint and play.
Oh, well, of course
So,
it is, but it's
so
doable.
that's why we do it with help, and it's also hard for teachers trying to plan, to have someone in their room and not able to plan. So I just wanna, as schools talk about needing space for special programs, we may do, I'm not asking for space, but we too, as schools offer more programs, they start to feel crowded, having additional staff and programs in the school. But I do understand that, that's how it used to work.
Noah?
I've already gone once, so if there's anyone that hasn't gone yet.
Just have Leah, who's already gone too.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to think this like reduction at Miller and moving into friendship is the final solution I'm proposing for fixing the population thing. It's just something that came up that looks like it's a way that we can help. I mean, we heard Terry saying she wants more kids. Julia saying she needs to find some room, get a little breathing room down there.
Thank you for changing that.
Sorry. And so it just seems like it's a really easy, not easy, but kind of straightforward proposal that kind of goes under Steve's idea in the presentation of making some proposed changes at a faster pace. I mean, we've all heard the expression of ripping the Band-Aid off. I understand moving kids around between schools is never a fun suggestion, but we have two administrators who are asking us to look at these things, and we have a easy proposal here that just seems like something we really should consider closely, along with other options. So.
I guess two things. First, I'll just say that I personally like the idea of moving the Miller sixth grade and starting that transition over to the middle school, because I think as rates decline, then we'll increase more and more room, and then eventually maybe all of the sixth grade classrooms can be at the middle school. And I think it's sort of awkward to have two grades in the middle school. It gives kids more of a time period to adjust. So that's sort of my feeling, having gone over a lot of the options during meetings. And then my other question was, I know during meetings, Julia's talked about new students a lot. So are you seeing that same trend, the declining trend at Miller as in the other elementary schools? Isn't Lincoln County?
I can speak to that. So in our ED 279, which is our state funding calculation, Waldeboro is the only town this year that had an increase in population. Everyone else went down between probably 8 and 22 students. So yeah, Lincoln County is one of the only counties in Maine that's still showing an increase in population. Everybody else is showing a decrease. So that's where Miller in the middle school and high school. Steve can probably speak to the 10-year trend better. I've just been watching our students and seeing how that's going. But just to speak to the bus thing, one of the reasons why we looked at that one, not necessarily trying to leave out the other 3 towns, but as most of you know, our elementary buses only go to one town. So if you're a Union bus, you stay in Union. We just have buses that cross really close between Friendship and Waldeboro. We were trying to look at it the most cost-effective way that would have the biggest impact between Julia's school, which needs the most relief, and Terry, who would love to have more students at her school.
I'm just gonna go first. If you had an influx of 50 students, how would that affect your budget?
I don't think it would. I thought about this. It would definitely raise our costs, for the handwriting. You would have peers, for example, buying more materials for kids, for, Sabbaths is still covered under, the district for 5 years, so it won't increase there. So the only place we buy workbooks is for that handwriting program. So I don't think it's going to be a huge increase. And our classroom teachers for their classroom budgets, I feel like get the same amount as other schools, even though they have more kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they would still have the same amount for their classroom budget.
Maybe I find it balance out because Julie wouldn't be needing as much.
Yeah, it
Theoretically?
could be, yeah.
I think it would be, yeah, I mean, I
It would
think
work out.
fine. I don't think I need to come back and say I need more money.
Yeah.
our budget and what we ask for the teachers is essentially what, Prescott asked for and what Union asked for. 2 years ago, we created our budgets together.
Emily? So is this an either or situation, sixth grade to the middle school or 50 kids from Miller to Friendship?
Just to clarify,
Or would you do
the
both?
entire sixth grade cannot fit at the middle school. So we would have to build an addition for the entire sixth grade. Steve's saying that possibly Miller School's sixth grade could fit at the middle school as it stands today.
Okay, so it's not really either or. And would it be an option to allow parents to choose if their kids switch schools or not?
I mean, I think then that gets away again from the bus transportation costs, is the cost and that feasibility. But
Maybe they'd have to be willing to provide their own transportation. I don't know, I'm just thinking about all angles. And I do think it would be hard for some children to leave their best friend.
Julia, did you have something to add?
Just about the letting parents make the choice.
Yeah.
Many years ago, because as some of you know, I've been here like forever. The board said, yes, let's redraw the lines. Everybody from Back Hole Road down was going to Friendship. And then parents complained, said, no, I don't want my kid to go. And the board backed out and said, oh, no, if you don't want to go, you don't have to send your child. And then it didn't make any difference. You know, we did it because we had really big classes, and then, so if you make a decision, I would ask that you stick with it. Choose a decision that you're willing to die on that hill.
Randy,
When can we discuss this seriously? Right now, we're just talking about it, proposing this, proposing that. We need a time. I don't know if it's March 31. That's at the very end of our agenda. We don't have anything any time in the schedule here for discussing the next 5 meetings. We find something we want to make substantive, maybe changes or discussions. These are all presentations. These aren't places for us to, if we want to talk about this, when can we do it and say, let's make a decision tonight and let's do it, move forward, instead of just saying, oh, this would be nice to talk about, and then come to the end of our budget meetings and not do anything. We don't, except for that discussion, we only have one opportunity to discuss this, and we have 4 or 5 more meetings of other things we want to talk about. This is going to be a longer discussion. This is good to get the info here. But we need to say, let's talk about this tonight. Let's decide this tonight and then move on from here. And as far as some kids go in here, some kids go in there. Been through that when I worked with the state. Some kids don't want to transfer when they, that's for us to decide. Yes, they will always feel bad if they have to move. Happens. They move from 3K to K, from K to junior high to high school, some high school to vocation. Yet change is always something for kids. If we decide that that's what it is, it is. So I just would love to discuss this more, but we're still in the presentation stage here, not the let's make a decision and see what we can do. Maybe, I just wanted to make that statement here. I'm not sure where it is. So far, I only see one place in
Randy,
the agenda.
I think ultimately that's a decision of the board and not the
Right.
committee.
Right.
So the committee would make a motion to bring this topic to the board meeting, and then we would discuss there and probably,
But we have to do it before March 31.
you could do it right now.
There's a board meeting.
No, you could make a motion to take this to the board meeting, or recommend, this committee recommend the board discuss it.
Make a motion to recommend that we discuss this before March 31, before there is any approval for the budget, period.
I'll second.
That's the correct way to handle that, correct?
We all seconded it.
It seems often we put these off, put these off, put
Emily,
these
that
off,
was you
we
that
go to a
seconded, right?
budget, and we haven't
It was
discussed.
actually
it.
me. First.
Hey,
I was actually gonna put a discussion on every night, Randy, but I wasn't sure if you guys would wanna do that after, I think
It would-
every single night.
yeah, these are presentations. I can say, we can spend 2 hours on this. And we could also have publics come in to talk if they wanted, but we make the decision, but we'll go until 10 o'clock at night on one. I mean, elementary school moving is very sensitive. Kids have brothers and sisters who went through this school, and they're doing that between here and Little Rock. There's transfers and things like that. Well, the oldest one went there for 4 years, and now I can't go there, or, you know, it's important, and it takes discussion. That's all.
Okay, so we just need to have wording for most, you have something worded.
Well, what I have for starters is to discuss redistricting before the budget is approved.
Just we discussed options.
I thought a motion to the board to discuss, right, Randy? It's the motion you want?
As a board. As a board.
That's
Yeah, because this is a committee.
Okay.
So for the committee to recommend to the board to have a discussion or to take an action.
Take a discussion and action. We can say no at the end of our discussion, or we can say yes, in which we have more action to do. Sorry.
Is that gonna get us where we need to be?
Doesn't matter, everyone agrees. It's
Yes.
just-
I wanna make sure
We all agree. Yeah, so I don't care what the word it says.
We
want to see a school utilized in full.
One decision.
So what is it, how does it read at this point?
Recommend to the board to discuss redistricting and take action prior to budget approval.
Do we want it to be just about redistricting or do you want it to be about addressing overpopulation?
Let's take care of one thing at a time. I would say to redistrict.
That is the issue that you're addressing with redistricting, right? So to look at all of the options would be to address the overcrowding.
I don't know if the
It's not
special ed
really a
classroom
thing
is
of overcrowding,
redistricting or not.
it's just about.
Right.
Where to
So that's one
where to put it.
solution to overcrowding, right?
I think we all know what we want about. However we want.
Moving in. It's true. A motion will be made at that time for whatever is discussed and can be brought forward. Okay, so, can we just vote on that so we can move on? So all in favor of adding this to the, you know what we're doing.
Not this week, right?
I don't know when.
No,
Not this week.
Long already?
no,
Is that everyone?
All of our, okay, I
opposed?
won't
So
say
we got
it.
everyone.
unless you want to be here till midnight.
Exactly, Danny, that's why I said we don't want to put it into that. We want to discuss it.
All right.
I still had a question for them in regards to that, but I don't know if I should ask now.
Do you want to wait until you're discussing it as a board? or-
Will they be here? Right.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they'll want to be.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
They better, but I
And you
can't
can
what
also
they is.
send an email.
Okay. Well, I just wanted, what if we did both of those things, like the Miller School 6th grade and
It's possible.
Yeah.
like, that'd be like 100 students you would
Not 100, but
move, right? Close to
the composite classroom is quite small.
No, we're talking about moving like.
moving
sixth grade.
entire Miller 6th grade and then redistricting, like you said, was about 50 students, so that
Yeah, and the
would
composite
be close
coming
to
in.
100
That'd be huge.
from Miller. That would be a big.
But as you said, moving to 6th grade involves an addition. That's not. gonna
No, it doesn't.
happen.
That would be
The
the
whole
whole sixth grade.
Just Miller's 6th grade.
Goes into the discussion.
All right,
We're going to-
let's get through our presentations here and then we'll pick up this conversation at that board meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
There you go.
so I'm gonna invite, I believe it's Ann is here from Union, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi.
So I'm Ann Hassett and I'm one of the substitute principals at Union School. I am there along with Steve Ocean. He's for the days that I'm not. And also, Casey and, Ray are also. So we work as a team together, not certainly taking place as staff, but, going to help it out as much as we can, including tonight. So, at the very beginning of the budget proposal, process, Crystal and Terry took me aside and said, okay, here's how it is. The small steps, here's how it is. We are staying flat. So, I just want to say it's a funny thing when you look at a budget sheet, right? Because it's like nothing is changing. And then when you look at the human component of the school for next year, everything's changing. I'll just skip to the second page. The teacher, interventionist, and principal are in gray because, that's Scott's position that, will be, assuming that there'll be any person, do Scott's retirement. So, like the other small schools that the, have teaching, administrative position. And then also the other red position, is the sixth grade teacher who is, also the top of the seat. So, like I said, it's sort of like everything is changing, on the budget. There's very little that's changing. Looking at the budget, of course, I haven't been there a long time. I didn't do the level of detail that Julie did, but we ordered the similar instructional materials that all of the schools order. There's one thing on actually that I wanted to point out. I'll get to it. Oh, okay. On page 4, you'll notice that dues and fees and memberships are up by $400, and that is part of PBIS, which is the budget review system. There's a recording system called Space that is not used at Union this year, but it would be a good idea to use that, and part of the new principal would want the option to use that. So we did put that into the budget. That's one change. And there's a typo that I wanted to point out too, and I thought I had circled it. Oh, okay, on page 2, you'll notice, the art teacher said 0.3, that should be 0.5. And that is not a change, from this year, it's just a typo. So it's right under the red one, it says 0.3, that should be 0.5. And I think that is all that I wanted to bring to your attention. Unless you have some questions. One thing I just wanted to mention too is that the pool and fund, which is a union community fund, is very helpful when we supplement our budget and providing a lot of opportunities for students. Some programs come in, the planetarium comes in, and students that are able to take more field trips than our budget reflects. So we're very appreciative to that partnership that we have with the community.
Thank you, Elena. Is there any questions? Father?
I've been kind of quiet tonight, but I really appreciate you being here and making this smooth transition when we had, a near medical fatality to make this all work, because if it wasn't for you and your team, we would really be in a mess. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Jamie, just want to say something?
Yeah, just, I guess this would be a question for Karen. On page 3, I see the teacher benefits are going down. Was there a change in? I mean, I like seeing it go down, but most time it's always going up.
Yeah, somebody,
Probably not taking.
Retiring, right? So,
just different than health insurance.
Okay.
Staff members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Justin Kangas, Warren Community School.
Whoops, I stopped sharing.
So if we take a look at page 1, kind of already been talked about, but due to sizes currently this year in pre-K, we have 22 students, but only 16 of them are actually for Warren. We've taken overflow from other towns. So we're looking at, and on top of that, we're looking at potential titles reductions. So we're looking at getting rid of one of our 2 pre-K programs. The other, we have a 3rd grade teacher who's retiring, so we're collapsing that position. And then Lori Taylor, who's currently teaching kindergarten, is funded by titles. So she's going to kind of like absorb that position, so to speak, in kindergarten. But we're going to go down to 2 teachers in 3rd grade. And so those are the big changes for us as far as personnel go. Everything else will be remaining the same. As far as everything else goes in the budget, very minimal changes, pretty much the same thing as last year. The only thing I've done is I've essentially moved money around based on where the expenditures, based on the lines where the expenditures actually came out of. Karen always gives us a list of what we've spent out of each line over the course of the last 3 years. I take a look at that and I try to reallocate funds to make sure that it's more accurately reflected. So that's really all that was. And I think there was like $190 savings when I did that, because there was a conference that somebody wasn't attending anymore. So that's really all I have. For budgetary changes, I would also just, I love that I'm a math geek. I used to be a math teacher, so the comment about math and what kids are learning, I definitely would recommend people getting into classrooms and seeing that. One thing that a lot of people probably aren't aware of is how much standards have moved down grade levels over the years. When I started teaching, I was teaching 7th grade math, and I was teaching kids slope-intercept form, distance formula, trinomials, stuff that I didn't learn until freshman, sophomore year high school. So when kids are struggling with things, that we teach much heavier material at much lower grade levels now, especially in math. I'm not familiar with the other subjects, but they are capable of picking up on it, so it's a lot of fun to teach. So. Any questions for me?
Anybody?
Last year you had, I can't remember if it was like 4,000 or something for passion projects.
Yes.
You were still able to do those?
Yeah, just got it into it.
Oh, it's in here, I didn't see it.
Yeah, we have money that we try to do for passion projects. We'd like to expand them eventually, but now it's not really the time to be doing that. But we find money if we don't have it. Yeah, we can ask community for donations. I take out a full account sometimes, things like that. Those are going really well. Those are really fun. Kids love them. Teachers love them. So they're great.
Only comment I was gonna make is that the class sizes are still really low, kindergarten, 1st grade. And, we've heard your spiel about why you feel that's important, but still feeling like it's a little too much.
Yeah, and as Steve said, over the next 5 years or so, we're looking at reducing, but the last place I want to reduce is the lower grade levels. Students at that age, that's when they make the most impact, that's when they develop the most, and as anyone will tell you, class size means more at the lower grade levels. If you have 20 kindergartners versus 26 graders, it's like herding cats in kindergarten, where in 6th grade it's more manageable. So I'd rather get the kid a good foundation built and get that good jump start. So that's why as I reduce positions, I would be looking to reduce from the top down. So those class sizes are going to be small regardless as they age up. So I'd rather them enjoy the decreased class size at the lower grade levels, where that's our chief time for identifying kids who have significant needs. Most of them pop in about 1st grade. It's much easier for teachers to manage those issues when class sizes are lower, which has been a real blessing the last few years as we've had lower class sizes. When 1st grade right now, we have like 4 or 5 kids that are taught and have been like very time consuming and are potentially heading down road for referrals, and having low class sizes have made dealing and managing with that a lot easier than it has been in the past when my school was overtaxed. I was in a similar position to Miller probably 8 years ago, so I was up to like 390 kids, and it was just, you were just constantly putting out fires. So the plan is to get down to 2 teachers per grade level. I have put out inquiry to teachers about what their plans are around retirement. I do know I have at least 2 more teachers in the next couple of years that are retiring. So that'll be another 2 positions that will be collapsing as long as numbers maintain this way, which it looks like they probably will, so.
I only feel like just because it's being brought up right now, I know we have a request for a teacher down at Miller. And again, just saying it because of the class sizes now, something to think about. Is it possible to move a teaching position from your school down to Miller? So there's no net increase.
Net increase, there's no net.
Net increase to
this
the
year.
budget, I'm saying.
Okay, there shouldn't be an increase to the budget this year, the way I have structured things.
I know, no, I'm saying because she's requesting a teacher.
Oh, I
And
got you.
by class sizes, you seem a little teacher heavy. Just something to consider, is that possible? Just food for thought.
Yep.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Right. We are moving on to Potomac Middle School.
Good evening. My name is Josh Schneider. I'm the principal at Potomac Middle. And, pleased to say that, we've got a fairly level budget again this year. We don't anticipate any, position changes. We're really running an amazing staff. So that should remain constant. In terms of the budget summary, we worked really hard to keep it fairly static. Dues and memberships, week one way and another. We got it pretty close to zero, negative 42.4. So, yeah, the line items there's quite a bit. Itemization is a process that we're going to work to expand as we go through, so that it kind of explains itself. But yeah, trying to keep things the same. Yeah, not making any major changes financially. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I can follow on.
You did. The band and music 0.1 positions, that worked well.
Yes, it actually does. And it's a reflection of what's been going on. So we split staff with high school. We have a win block, which is, so what I need now. The static block, it fits in our period 2 slots, so it's always kind of in the same spot. And they come over daily. They also come over period 5. So we kind of work piecemeal with their schedule over there. It's been very successful. My understanding is their enrollment in band and chorus is as high as it's been in a long time. And there's some sweet sound coming out of that room. So working well for us so far. Always more is better when it comes to arts and music and creative expressions, but we've been pretty lucky.
I know it's important for the high school too,
Yeah.
getting students into those programs.
Yeah, for some kids, that's the thing, catches them and carries it.
Yes, no? Anybody else? Dan?
I don't know if this be a question for Karen on page 4. Under other instruction, the stipends are going down. Normally that goes up.
Right, when we budgeted last year, we were still in, moving all the stipends around from the prior year, so it's actually, this year is more reflective of the truth. When we budgeted the prior year, we did everybody at the high, because we changed all, remember we added all those new
Yes.
stipends? We didn't know who would fill those positions, so I shouldn't say we budgeted them at high, we budgeted them all mid-level, and then in some schools, you'll see it's going down, others it's going up, because who actually took those stipends was, they could have been on step 1, and I think, what did they go, step 6, maybe?
Okay,
So, yeah, you'll see it through all the schools, the stipends are moving around.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all we have on here for tonight. Is there, anything else you want to discuss before we
believe we haven't got through all the schools yet, so. it's probably-
Yep, everyone has everything.
Yep, then everyone has everything they need, and we'll meet back here next Monday. Actually, we'll see you on Thursday. Lord.
Does that mean we're adjourned?
We are in recess.
Recess.